I started gathering my favorite video game songs, and a common theme started to crop up. Music that conveyed a beautiful sadness, floating in the ether of ecstasy and agony. This is Vigil from Mass Effect. I love how Vigil hints at the vast wonder of unknown space. It's terrifyingly larger than our own science or imagination can possibly fathom. Yet there's this exotic, alluring, smoky melody that beckons us to explore, find some kind of a human connection out there. This song, I think, sets the tone perfectly for the type of music I want to explore today. Vigil was composed by Jack Wall. Our next song will be from Dark Souls 1, The Firelink Shrine, composed by Motoi Sakuraba. Firelink Shrine. I really love the way the strings just stretch and stretch and stretch out. They just take notes and pull them and pull them and pull them. And it really gives it this feeling of a heaviness. There's a heavy load on the player, on the character. Every character, it seems like, in Dark Souls feels a huge weight, a weight of despair that maybe nobody can be the hero. And that's certainly how people feel when they play it, where you've bashed your head against the wall 10 times, 12 times, and you cannot beat a boss, and you think, that's it, there's no way I can do it. But the whole point of that game is that just when you think you could never possibly beat it, if you just keep pushing and keep pushing, eventually you will. And I think that that's a great metaphor for what we're talking about with sadness and the happiness that can come from it, the clarity that can come from it, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Firelink Shrine by Motoi Sakuraba. Let's pick it up a little. We can't have a full show of dreary, slow descension into the abyss. We're going to play a track from Undertale. I love this song. This is called Fallen Down. We're going to play the reprise version. This was my ringtone for a long time, so much so that when the first time that I actually played it in the game on the speakers, as soon as my girlfriend heard it, she goes, "Matt, your phone's ringing." This is composed by Toby Fox, who directed the game and did a huge majority of it. Quite a genius this kid is. Fallen Down by Toby Fox from Undertale. this track. It's quite simple. Just a beautiful, sort of like a toy piano sound, which I think fits this childlike wonder of a world where everything starts off seeming quite innocent, although there is this like constant black background. And I'm sure that's just scratching the surface of every little piece of like metaphorical evidence that is hidden in the constant playthroughs that people are discovering with this game. Some that are there by design, and a lot of things that I think when you're a super fan of something, and especially when the internet gets a hold of it, it's quite easy to just add to those things as well. But I think that can be the fun of it. When you make something that is this thought-provoking, this deep, and this just loved by people, they can take it in their own direction. And a good piece of art can just belong to the public and can belong to the people. And as much as that can get annoying when you're trying to stream it, and tons of people come in and try to take ownership of it in a way, it's still a beautiful thing. And it was a beautiful game. And it's a beautiful song. Fallen Down, reprised by Toby Fox. Let's keep the lightheartedness going. We're going to play a track from one of my all-time favorite games, Final Fantasy VII. This is going to be Tifa's Theme by Nobuo Uematsu. Man, I love this track. It's very simple, yet a very strong melody. Very plucky and innocent. Most of all, it's nostalgic. Tifa and Cloud thinking of the past. Maybe thinking of it as something better or easier than what they're dealing with now as adults. And missing what could have been and what could be now. Uematsu is just a master of taking things that seem simple at first, going to usually slightly unexpected places, just like big leaps and intervals of notes. I think this is a real underrated masterpiece where Aerith's theme gets a lot more play as it's thought of as the main theme for Final Fantasy VII. But I think Tifa's theme is just so perfect. I can almost hear her singing the lyrical melody of this, just saying who she is, what she thinks of Cloud. You can kind of feel her whole outlook and all the nostalgia for all the memories in this game, which in the meta translates really well to the nostalgia a lot of people have, myself included, for this game being such a huge moment for young gamers of all ages, then the PlayStation itself, really turning the PlayStation into a big success. This was Sony's first console, and now look at them. They're in the top of the field. They're the old hand. But it all started back here. Tifa's Theme by Nobuo Uematsu. Alright, we've got to get back down to some of the sadder, more despair-filled tracks, so we're going to pivot with another track from Final Fantasy VII. This is another one of my favorites. In quite a short soundtrack, and one that maybe doesn't have as many really great, memorable tracks as Uematsu's work in the other Final Fantasy games, but to me, they really hit super hard. This is a track that plays often throughout Final Fantasy VII, in some of the worst moments, really showing the life of the people in the slums and the things they need to go through. This track is Anxious Heart. Interesting. I always think of this song as crushingly sad because of those two opening chords. I mean, the whole weight of the world. It sounds like your whole world is just slid off a cliff, a mudslide. And it feels like the notes they're playing, the chords they're playing are never going to resolve. It's just like it's sweeping away, like you're spiraling in your mind. But from that, like a flower growing out of the dirt, like Aerith's house or church in the slums, hope arises. These carefully plucked strings, sort of angelic. I like how there's almost like it's tough to know what exactly it is. It is like a very low choir sound that comes in there right before this flute. Almost like it's an angel, but it's a really low angel that's closer to hell than you would like, but it's still there to help you out. I love this track. Anxious Heart by Nobuo Uematsu. I'm going to hit you with another super floaty piece, very similar to Vigil from Mass Effect. This one is from Devil May Cry 4. This is a song I could listen to for hours on end, and I probably have. This is The Idol of Time and Space. Idle of Time and Space. I thought I knew what Devil May Cry track sounded like. And then this one came along. I don't know where I found it, how I found it. I was probably looking up playlists of just chill video game music, and then this one appeared and I was gonna say smacked me over the head, but lightly covered my face in chloroform and brought me into the dreamland. This song feels like a gelatinous blob, just moving. Just by existing in different spaces slowly. Or like the seemingly slow orbit of a planet or the movement of stars, where the movement is imperceptible to our eye, but thousands or millions of light years away, they could be traveling at thousands or million of light years per second. I don't know. I am not a scientist. It is probably very obvious to you. But I love this track. It's another one that just takes beautiful pieces and stretches it out. It sounds like maybe like a beautiful love ballad that's played at about 20% speed, or maybe even slower, with that lovely humming melody. You get to hear this when you die, then won't be all that bad, will it? Idle of Time and Space. Our next track will also be of the floaty variety. This is from Final Fantasy X. I believe it was the first Final Fantasy game that brought in other composers other than Nobuo Uematsu, as compared to the previous 9 Final Fantasy games that had music composed by himself, and I believe he asked for help. These games are big, they were getting bigger, and he wanted some assistance. He brought in, Square Enix brought in, or just Square at the time, Masashi Hamauzu, who went on to compose incredible music in the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy. He handled all the reworked tracks in Final Fantasy VII. And this was a huge introduction for him. This track by Masashi Hamauzu from Final Fantasy X is called Wandering Flame. Hamauzu's such a master of ambience, and this is probably one of the more stripped back pieces he's done. A lot of his stuff, he likes to have tons and tons of different layers going on, violin, synth, piano, things just kind of swirling around. And this one, again, like the last track, it's like you've taken something he would have done in Final Fantasy XIII and just slowed it way down. Let those notes stretch. There's no real percussion. It's more of like slow breathing. It's more like when you've connected with somebody so much that all you need to do with them is breathe. And it soundtracks Yuna and Titus's discovery of the truth of what's going to happen, or Titus's discovery of it. His transition and hers from being plucky youngsters, starting off on this pilgrimage, the sunniness, people cheering them on, and then getting to the point where they realize the very real consequences of what it is to be an adult and the responsibilities of that. And how sometimes you can't avoid that. You just have to do it. Because life isn't always about just doing the things you want to do. An incredible track, and I'm so glad that Square Enix found, and Square at the time, Squaresoft, found Masashi Uematsu to take over the reins from Uematsu. An incredibly difficult feat. It's like taking over from Koji Kondo. But I'm pretty happy with the stamp he's left on the Final Fantasy franchise. Wandering Flame from Final Fantasy X by Masashi Hamauzu. Now, really quickly, I just want to bounce back to Final Fantasy IX and play a bit of Freya's theme, showing that Uematsu could still do just everything we're talking about now, and what he was showing in Final Fantasy VII and what Hamauzu had done. But let's listen to a bit of Freya's theme from Final Fantasy IX by Nobuo Uematsu. Great stuff. Now let's check out what Uematsu contributed to Final Fantasy X after Hamauzu and another composer I can't remember the name of was also brought in. In Final Fantasy X, let's check out Silence Before the Storm. And I'm going to hope that this is not the remastered version. Now, similar in style to what Hamauzu would bring to the series later on, but you can hear the Uematsu trademarks of a very strong melody being a more central highlight, maybe a bit more direction with the music, and also just these like big leaps and intervals of the notes of the melody, and especially here on that bass. Uematsu likes to... He is so incredible at taking things that could sound out of the box, sort of almost a bit like bewildering, but he manages to make it sound so cohesive. And that's the power of music and Uematsu. All right, let's get back to our regular programming. I mentioned Koji Kondo earlier in the show. Now we're going to play 2 tracks of his back to back. The first one and the second one are both going to be from Majora's Mask, a beautifully sad game and sadly beautiful game. This first one is going to be Oath to Order, Calling the Four Giants. How do you follow up Ocarina of Time in only 1 year? Ocarina of Time, considered at the time and to this day by many one of the greatest adventures in video games of all time. Well, Nintendo went the other way. They used a lot of the same assets to reduce the development time. They went inward and they went dark and they went down. And they dealt with the crushing reality of impending death. What if a moon was trying to crash into the earth? What if, like, what we're dealing with in our own lives? A time limit, not only on ourselves, but on the planet that we live on. And what if, no matter how many people Link tried to save, what if he didn't find that fourth giant? What if it all was for nothing? When you fix an area in Majora's Mask, every time you do need to manipulate time, that gets undone. It's not a dark world that is just gradually getting made better permanently. It's not until you deal with it. Not until you talk to the four giants. Not until you get them all on your side can you stop the moon from crashing into that earth. And this piece captures that perfectly, as it just feels like a crushing weight with power. An epic struggle, the unstoppable force meeting the immovable object. What a track. Oh, the Zelda's hero theme coming in. Now, from that one, of a crushing, impending doom that is cradled by an ultimate heroic power, we're going to check out a purely glorious theme from Majora's Mask. This one is Astral Observatory. And it's coming up right now. love this song because it really flips everything we've been talking about upside down, where there's this, or at least what we've been talking about with the call to order, the oath, the four giants, oath to order. This one, there is definitely light at the end. There's light on the top that is unmistakably bursting through. It's just a simple sort of arpeggio through these chords. The chords are sort of falling into each other. There's a sense that even though things can be dark, that nothing permanently is going to be dark. That there's always going to be this bright melody in these chords that are going to shine through. It's one of the few times in this game that you get to feel that. Especially after a very dark intro that you've been watching for the last few minutes. Link looking like he was defeated, carried by his horse, tricked by this mask, turned into a Deku scrub. The lamest of all Zelda enemies. Or at least the weakest seeming. And then you finally get to this Astral Observatory and learn the truth of what's going on in this world. And it's a glorious moment. Astral Observatory, also composed by Koji Kondo. I'm going to leave you with one more real sad one that's short and kind of sweet. And then I'm going to throw you a nice little curveball to celebrate at the end. This next one is from Shadow of the Colossus. This plays when you take down a big Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus was a very interesting game on the PS2 that asked questions like, what if the main character that is going around defeating everybody is actually the bad guy? Let's check it out. Shadow of the Colossus asks, what if the main character was not right? Going around killing everything in sight. Killing these creatures that, for the most part, at least the first one that you encounter, are actually peaceful. I mean, sure, they attack you, but they only do so when you get their attention and you start attacking them. Your character is trying to bring back someone they love from the dead, which is, of course, it's a selfish thing when you're dabbling in the dark arts. Death is a natural order of things, and to disrupt that is a dark idea and a dark notion, and there will be consequences. And the way to do that in this game is to take the life from these creatures that, for all you know, are completely unique, one of a kind. Every one you take down in your quest to bring back your loved one, you're wiping that species or whatever this thing is, this god, from the earth. And when you finally kill one, after this incredibly epic, hugely scaled battle that still holds up now as incredibly exciting and just massive, but at the time on the PS2 in, say, 2005, was mind-blowing. And then to hear this as the victory theme, it's more like a gentle funeral march, where as you see their soul leave their body, you have this heavenly music that is, it's not a celebration of it, but it's more of Well, you've killed something and now they're going to heaven. As in, you're not. You're more like the Grim Reaper. You're going to hell. This creature is going to go to heaven. And then this black power hits your character. And they're overcome. And a black shadow is looking over you. An incredible game and an incredible piece of music from Shadow of the Colossus. All right, that was a lot of heavy music to get through. Thank you so much for watching it with me. I'm going to leave you with something a little brighter. This is a bright, sort of swinging NES tune, but it definitely has that tinge of kind of melancholy, almost like you're looking back at things that, I don't know, with like a hint of nostalgia, or maybe it's sort of like a looking back and going like, well, that's the way it was. I don't quite know how to describe the song other than read the title in front of me, and that is Tante Jinguji Saburo Toki no Sugiyuku Mamani. It's from 1990 by the Data East Corporation, some kind of a Japanese game. I first heard this on the Super Mercado Brothers and fell in love with it. This is track 1 from that. Thanks very much for watching. I will see you next week.